Hello everybody and welcome to Revisiting Disney. This is the series in which I pick an attraction and I play Imagineer for a day and talk about how I would refurbish the attraction, redo the attraction, replace it in some cases. It's a fun creative exercise to just sort of see what could be with the parks or what could have been. And today I'm taking a look at the Carousel of Progress. Now this is probably the most hallowed attraction that I'm revisiting. It is one of my personal favorites. It is one that has such a deep history with not only the Walt Disney Company, but with Walt himself, to the point where they renamed the attraction to Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. And some might think that this ride is beyond revisiting or refurbishing, but at the end of the day, the Disney parks are not meant to be a museum. They're meant to be a theme park, and that means every attraction sooner or later is going to need an update. Now, this one, I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about updating the attractions, what they talk about is updating the final scene, right, to be more in line with today's era. But in my revisiting, I'm going to say we need to get rid of all of them. Let's start it off completely fresh, all new scenes, new writers, new cast, maybe keep the music. I think that would be a great way to just sort of anchor itself into its history, is keep Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, but for the most part, change everything. Now, you need to know the history of this attraction to sort of understand its appeal, right? This was an attraction that was made for the 1964's World Fair, and the attraction's all about how tomorrow is better because of all of our technological advances. Now, what was great is back then in 1964, when the final scene was like in the 60s, 70s, everybody who rode that attraction could resonate with one of those scenes, right? It starts with like the turn of the century. Now, back in the 60s, people riding that could remember the turn of the century because it was close enough. But it has been half a century since the attraction sort of debuted. So it's already such an old attraction that if anybody rides it today, they're not going to remember the the turn of the century and going into 1900. It's just too long ago. And so that sort of resonance is lost. And I think that's something that we could revisit and sort of refresh, right? The theme of this attraction is supposed to look at our recent history and talk about how our recent advances has made life better. You know, that's the reason why these early scenes are not in the 1800s or 1700s, because the idea is you want to connect with that and go, I remember when we first got the light bulb or when we first got a refrigerator. But today's world, we have all of these things. So I think the best way we could revisit this is to actually put a new focus on the digital improvements on our lives, right? That's sort of where this big explosion happened with the 70s and then the early 80s with personal computing, and then look at where we are today and just the technology we have today. So why not revisit this attraction so that it starts with the first scene being in the late 70s, when the idea of somebody owning a computer is such a novel and new thing, and then jump from the 70s to the mid 80s to the late 90s to, the near future, within the next couple of years. And I think that's something that sort of reorganizes the timeline so that the people who ride it, whether they're old or young, can relate to one of those scenes, whether it's the 90s or the 80s if you're like around my age, or if you're an adult, the 70s. You remember growing up during that era. And you could throw in all these references. Today they try to make jokes about, now it only takes, a couple of hours to do the wash instead of 3 days. And people laugh then because we can't imagine that time. But there was also a humor there because there were people riding it who could remember when that's how it was for them. And we don't have that today. But if you have that on sort of a digital scale, I remember the day when downloading a song took me 10 to 15 minutes, or downloading a demo for a video game used to be like an all-night affair. You just turn it on and you leave it up. And now, if my cell phone doesn't load a movie trailer within 10 seconds, something's wrong. I think looking on that scale, that digital scale of how our world has improved, is a great way of, one, highlighting new products, which is sort of what was also the point of that attraction. Let's not forget that this was made for the World's Fair. It was made to show off all these new appliances that make our lives better, and that's part of the core of the theme. And I think it would just be a fun way to add some more new humor to the parks. You get a new cast there, you get a new voiceover, You get some new writers, you could throw in the new scenes, and then you could still throw in all these references to the older attraction. And I think it'd still be a lot of fun. I think it would breathe new life into the attraction so that it's relevant. I think a lot of people ride it these days who are not Disney fanatics, who do it to get out of the heat or to sit down for 15 minutes, and not because they truly enjoy the attraction. And who can blame them? It is almost it's a 50-year-old attraction. You need to update these things from time to time. But I think the core function of being in a theater that rotates around these scenes and this core theme of the betterment of tomorrow with our technological advances could still be kept true in this attraction, even if you revisited the whole thing in the way I'm sort of proposing. So that's sort of how I would revisit the Carousel of Progress. Now, do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. You can let me know on Twitter. I'm at Rob Plays on Twitter. I'm Rob Plays a Game on Facebook and Instagram. More importantly, if there's an attraction you would like to see me revisit, feel free to let me know in the comments below too. I usually turn to you guys for suggestions on what I should be revisiting. Anyway, have a great week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it because it makes it so much more enjoyable. And I hope to see you all here next time for the next episode of Revisiting Disney. Bye, everybody.